No, no, it's supposed to be over. I told you to leave me alone. God, get away from me. No, no, get out of my head. Vivian Medrano needs no introduction. She is a beloved animator that's made such classics as Hazbin Hotel, Helluva Boss, and of course, who could forget an entire blog post dedicated to Sausage Party, literally titled Chill Out Bro, It's Just Fiction. And you think that's bad? I'm still reeling from the thought that someone watched Sausage Party and didn't want to immediately stick a shotgun barrel in their. But what did she ever do before Hazbin? Well, fellow sentient conscious life forms, that is what I'm here to talk about today. Back in the year of our Lord 2012, Vivian produced a comic entitled Zoophobia. Zoophobia is a lot like the, I guess, furry webcomic equivalent to Doctor Who Classic. I mean that in the sense that it's freaking impossible to find anywhere. Apparently, the original Tumblr featuring Zoophobia was deleted, and there have been a few archives here and there since then, but for whatever reason, I can't get most of them to work, and any archives that I do find, they're always just like the first few pages of the first comic, so I don't really know what to do. Fortunately, I acquired some old comic dubs, and I tried to see as much as I could of the series, but I don't think I was able to really find everything. I got like the first 4 or 5 episodes, maybe, so I probably have some missing context, but I still want to give my thoughts on it. After I finished it, I was curious to see what other people's opinions were on it, so I did a bit of research, and there were a lot of people giving it praise, saying that they really liked the art style and the direction of the series, some calling it love it or hate it, but I also found someone put it on this like website of like the worst web comics ever made. Now, what do I think about it? Well, I think it's kind of mid. It's not very good. Like, I don't want to sound mean or anything, but it's kind of terrible from every angle you look at it. You know how a lot of people say that Hazbin Hotel has good ideas, just bad execution? Well, Zoophobia has bad execution, except the ideas were also bad in the first place. Okay, that sounds too mean. Not always. See, it's really hard because I really don't want to punch down on it. I never really want to punch down on a indie creative work, but the thing is, it is just so not good. And like there's nothing outrageously terrible about it, or like nothing that right off the bat you would notice to be outrageously terrible, but I still think it's just so unimpressive. To explain why I don't really like it a whole lot, I need to kind of recap like the entire story, so spoilers ahead, ye scurvy dogs. Zoophobia follows Cameron Walden, whom I will be referring to as Cameron Walden for the duration of this video. Since I absolutely hate that name because it's such a weird sounding name, I'm going to say it over and over again as many times as I can. Anyway, Cameron Walden here is a school counselor who's afraid of animals. So it begins where Cameron Walden is like doing a job interview, and then the lady sends her somewhere. I don't actually remember where, but it doesn't really matter. But then it's revealed that the lady is actually like an evil entity of some kind, and she's tricked Cameron Walden. Now, I believe that this evil entity is actually Chaos. We don't know why she sent Cameron Walden to where she did, but that doesn't really matter because that isn't a plot hole, it's just probably something that wasn't revealed yet. So while she's on a plane going to wherever the hell location Chaos sent her, the plane then proceeds to crash into the into like another dimension, and she encounters all these strange animal hybrid people. We soon find out that this place is called Safe Haven, and once a human enters, they can never leave. And remember, Cameron Walden is afraid of animals. Now she's stuck here forever and ever. A common criticism given to Hazbin Hotel is that there were too many characters, and I disagree with this criticism firmly. I am someone who really likes ensemble stories, and I think it is possible to balance a wider cast, and I think Hazbin Hotel does a good job at that. Now, with that being said, Zoophobia has too damn many characters. No, like actually, every character has like three assistants. Every assistant has like five relatives. Every relative has like eight best friends. It's so hard to keep track of who's who. And that's not even to mention the mountains of unofficial characters that never canonically appeared. Like, there's one guy named Spam in a Can, and I think later on he does speak, but like initially in the comic, his only like role is to just show up every once in a while and lick someone. That's it. That's his thing. Is that he licks people, which licking is like the dog equivalent of kissing, so technically this guy could be charged for sexual harassment, just saying. Now, Cameron Walden, not really my favorite protagonist. I like the pitch of her character, where it's a human in another world who's with all these kind of, monster kids with powers and stuff, and she's trying to be their counselor, help them out. But, their problems are, a little more complex than, what you might see in the normal human world. I do like that. That's a good idea. But the thing is, that's not really what happens. Like, between the first episode, where she's introduced, and the fourth or fifth, which is like the first time she's shown counseling someone, she doesn't, like, do anything between that. Like, I don't think you even see her for most of it either. And it's weird because there are so many other characters that are either much more compelling or just much more fun as characters, so it makes you wonder, why is Cameron Walden supposed to be the main focus? And Cameron herself, I don't really like a whole lot either. Again, the whole thing with her is that she's afraid of animals but stuck in a place with all animal people, and you'd think it would be about her, like, overcoming that fear, learning to overcome her anxiety. And again, maybe that's the plan, but it doesn't really happen. Instead, her character just becomes really predictable, where an entire story will be playing out, and she would just walk into a room, look at someone, scream, and then run away, and that would be like the extent of her contribution. Ah, shit, I said Cameron instead of Cameron Walden. Forget that one! And another thing, even though she's afraid of animals, the only one she's not afraid of is fish. Not really sure what that's all about, but I think in that same scene it's also said that she used to go camping with her mom, and maybe her mom died. So, that feels like a potential avenue for something where it's like, okay, she used to go camping, then why is she afraid of animals? Unless animals remind her of her mom, and maybe that's why she doesn't like them, but it's not really that she doesn't like them, it's more that she's just actually afraid of them. So I feel like there maybe was something there, but I really don't know. Okay, crackpot theory time. I think the reason why Chaos sent Cameron Walden to Safe Haven is because of her mother. Perhaps her mom was a rival, or maybe even the sister of Chaos, and that's how everything ties in. Or maybe, and this is less likely, Chaos is Cameron Walden's mom, but probably not. And because Cameron Walden is so, I guess, underutilized would be the word, she feels like kind of just an excuse for other characters to just dump as much exposition on the reader as possible. Something I've mentioned a few times in my previous Hazbin Hotel videos is that I'd really like it if there was a character that was a newbie to hell. Even though I do like the whole seedy Los Angeles kind of vibe that Hell has, even though it is kind of counterbalanced by all the goofy shenanigans that be happening there, sometimes it is easy to forget that this is an afterlife. Imagine if they took a page out of the Good Places book. What if there is a character who maybe thought they were a good person and expected to end up in heaven, but instead got in hell and is now trying to cope with it? We never actually see any of the characters kind of deal with the mortality of being dead, since, like, again, they're literally dead and in hell, and none of them seem to really be concerned with that. And having a character that is in universe unfamiliar with things does give you an excuse to have expositional moments, which you could argue that, like, but isn't that lazy writing? Yeah, well, they do exposition dumps anyway in this series, so Like, why not have it be a bit more organic? But that doesn't really work for Cameron Walden because, as I've said before, she doesn't really get a whole lot of screen time, despite literally being the main character. Honestly, honestly, Cameron Walden feels like a self insert. Like, Zoophobia feels like a fan story of something that already exists, just with a self insert OC added to the mix. It's not really because of her personality, more so the fact that she doesn't do anything, but is constantly surrounded by all these really unique, interesting, colorful characters. I'm not saying she definitively is, but you can see why I would think that, right? Now, how about some of the other main characters? Do they work as protagonists? Well, honestly, yeah, kinda. Jack is someone who is cursed with both bad luck and immortality, essentially meaning he's destined to suffer for all of existence. And what Jack is worried about the most isn't necessarily pain that would be caused by his bad luck, even though, like, there is some there. What he's really concerned with is the thought of people that he cares about wanting to leave him to avoid getting hurt themselves. And Jack is someone who really wants to make friends and find love, but he's so worried that he'll be rejected that sometimes he just doesn't even try. Then we have Damien. Now, Damien is Jack's cousin and also the literal freaking Antichrist. And yeah, he is the son of the actual devil from the Bible. And I actually initially didn't like Damien. I thought he was kind of annoying, but I grew to like him more after the episode that focused on him, because he's something of a problem child. Early on, he's depicted as a bully, frequently picking on people like his cousin Jack, for example, but later on we find out that part of the reason he acts this way is because he has a really rough home life. Well, duh, he's the son of the devil. He loves his friends and found family, but is worried that his dad will try to separate them, since he doesn't really approve of him leaving hell and going to the academy. And I know I've been bringing up Hazbin Hotel comparisons a lot, and most of them have been saying how Hazbin did it better, but here I'm gonna throw Zoophobia a bone, because I do think that Damien and the Devil's relationship is a lot better than Charlie and Lucifer's, since Damien and the Devil, it actually feels like they have a complicated, kind of rocky relationship. Like, Damien is conflicted about how he feels about his dad, whereas Charlie and Lucifer just feel kind of like the same person, pretty much. Where are the hooves, Mr. Ace? She's supposed to have hooves. So also hell, like just straight up hell, is connected to Safe Haven, like they're in the same world, which I feel like should raise a few questions. Like, does that mean Safe Haven is an afterlife? Is that why humans can't leave once they enter? I don't know. But yeah, at some point they were going to introduce this entire like host of characters that were all like demons meant to be in hell, and they would later be repurposed as the Hazbin Hotel cast. And I am so glad they didn't show up in Zoophobia, because again, there's just so many freaking characters here. It would have overloaded my brain if they did that. God. Now, I think the wider universe of Zoophobia could work because, the series itself, you can only fit so much just stuff in that. And I think Vivian maybe rushed into it too hard, creating this entire pantheon of characters and, like, revealing all of them before using, like, most of them. And it's like, you need certain things to be unconnected. You would probably need, like, other standalone stories or spin-offs or whatever to really make the universe feel wide, because when you're trying to just cram everything all into one specific like storyline, it can fall apart way too easily. So I think maybe it could have worked, but I don't know. Oh yeah, also this character right here is a robot. What? Huh? And finally, let's take a look at Zill. I really like his design. I think it looks really cool. Zill is Jack's best friend, and his origin is something of a mystery since no one knows what species he is. When he was first found as a baby, he was this like feral like thing crawling on the ground biting people's feet. And over the years, he basically learned how to speak English. Zill doesn't really seem all that concerned with the fact that literally no one knows what he even is, but that honestly kind of fits with his character since he seems like the type of person who would want to move forward and not dwell on the past. Or maybe he's just trying to hide his concern for this as to not worry his friends. Either way, I think it works, and there's really a lot you can do with this species thing as a plot point. There are so many directions you could take that with storytelling, and it's really a shame that we never got to see how that played out. Then we have Kayla, who is in a relationship with Zill, and they're kind of like the power couple of this series. But I actually don't really like Kayla a whole lot because she's kind of annoying. And actually, hold on, I'm noticing in this image on screen, it's specifying that she's 17, but then there's an arrow at the bottom pointing out how curvy she is. What the fuck, Vivian? You didn't have to do that. What is wrong with you sometimes? God. Now, as the power couple of the series, there is some relationship drama between the two, which is expected, but it's very unrealistic. Like, both how it starts feels very forced, and the way it's resolved is also very forced. Zill misses their anniversary, and Kayla just immediately starts ignoring him, even though he does apologize. And it just kind of makes Kayla look like a jerk for really no reason. And I think with a conflict like this, you need to make it cascade. To make the conflict feel more organic, let's say that Zill forgot their anniversary, but then later apologized to Kayla and she, in the moment, forgave him. And he would promise to make it up to her later on, but then due to some other outside force that Zill couldn't control, he once again wasn't able to. And Kayla, not knowing the full context, probably just assumed that he blew her off or something. This way you can kind of understand both of their perspectives, and so the conflict feels much more organic. And the way it's resolved is also really dumb. Basically, a bunch of vampires attack the school, and that's it. Once the vampires are beaten, Caleb just like, oh no, I wasn't really mad at you. Okay, then why were you ignoring him? Why did you like snub him when you were walking down the hall like that? The scene with the vampires is so freaking dumb, I cannot even stand it. Like, okay, so this Ice King looking guy just walks into the school, goes up to Zill in the middle of the hall, and is like, I challenge you to a duel. And Zill's like, no, and then just ignores him and walks away. Okay, the hell was that all about? Then the vampires show up and they're like, hey, you're Zill, that crime fighter guy. And it's like, crime fighter? Where the hell did that come from? When was that established? Is he this world's Danny Phantom? We never saw him fight any crime before. We never hinted at it or mentioned at it at all, which I guess explains why that Ice King looking guy was there. But then why did Zill ignore him? If he's like a super villain, isn't he supposed to beat him up? Unless is he like the joke villain, which again that was not established. And then in the next episode, it said that there's no crime in Safe Haven because it's this perfect place where nothing bad happens. But then how is still a crime fighter? Is he Randy Cunningham, ninth grade ninja, or not? Pick one. Sorry about all of that. The one redeeming part about Kayla is the fact that she's a marsupial, because then that means I get to do this. It appears to be some sort of marsupial. As I said before, Cameron Walden could have worked as a character. Imagine experiencing Jack's bad luck, or Damien's daddy issues, or Zill and Kayla's relationship through the lens of a therapist that was trying to help them. And there's this added challenge because there's all these supernatural elements involved, and Cameron Walden is this fish out of water in another world. We do get some of that with Jack, but that's in the 5th episode, and by then most of the other characters have already gone through their character arcs, so it's a little late by then. And you can still have relatable slice of life moments and balance it with lore heavy backstory. I mean, anime does it all the time, or at least I think it does. I don't actually watch any. Something else I just noticed is that whenever you look at a lot of the conflicts that the characters have, they actually do a pretty good job balancing the kind of realistic parts with the kind of fantasy parts. Because, sure, Damien is the son of the devil, the Antichrist, but the main core of his conflict is the fact that he has, relationship issues with his dad. Or Jack is immortal and has bad luck, but the main core of his issue is that he's worried he'll be alone forever. So it's this really nice, actually, symmetry that I never really caught on before. I remember hearing somewhere that in future installments of Zoophobia, they would have gotten rid of Cameron Walden. They would have pivoted away from her and had someone else be the main character. And I find that a really weird decision. Now, it's one thing to reboot the series and start again without her, but to just completely scrap her entirely when she's already introduced and established as the main character is a little weird. Like, I personally think that if you ever have a character that isn't working for you, you don't have to get rid of them. You can try to fix them. And I mean, of course, it is Vivian's series. Sure, she can get rid of Cameron Walden if she wants to, but then it's like, what was the whole deal with Chaos then? What was that story going to be? Would it have stayed? Would it have, like, there's just so many questions this leaves open. So there are some minor things about Zoophobia that I don't really like, but I feel like they're really not that important, so I'll go by them pretty quickly. And I want you to take these with a grain of salt also, because I don't really care about these as much. And that's the art style and the world building. Or maybe not the world building, but just the world in general. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the edge and the spindliness of Vivzipop's style. Maybe not as much as, say, the original Liam Vickers style, but I still like it. The Art of Zoophobia feels a lot like, I guess I'd call it a beta version or a proto version of the current Vivzipop art style. Like, this image right here perfectly illustrates, no pun intended, the whole dynamic where look at 2012 and then look at 2014, where one of them is like a lot less detailed and feels like kind of overly cartoony, and then the other one is a lot more refined and, much more well put together. I guess there's a bit of an appeal to how ugly it looks, but at the same time, I'm not sure I'd really go as far as to call it ugly most of the time anyway, so whatever. And just to clarify, I'm really not trying to be mean or insult the art style or anything like that. And then the world building, I'm not super the hugest fan of either, because I feel like there's nothing that Zoophobia really has. There's nothing that sets it apart from the lot. Like, it's this other world, there's magic, every myth, every legend, every monster, all kinds of human animal hybrids, they all exist. And if everything exists, then really, what's the takeaway? Again, this person is a robot. What role does technology play in this world? How advanced is it? Who uses it? Is there like is there a divide between technology and magic users? Why are there so little robots? Like there's just so much that could be answered but isn't. I could be remembering this wrong, but I think certain species are meant to be related to each other. Like vampires and demons are both offshoots of like the same evolutionary chain or something. I don't know. I could be making that up. I can't remember. But if there are so many different species living here and they're all like diverse, then are they all equal? Like, sorry to be the guy to ask that question, but like, are there any races that don't like each other or are at war with each other? Like, the school has such a wide population and everyone seems kind of fine with it. Not really saying I want them to like hate each other or anything, but like you'd think they would at some point. If hell is forever, if hell is connected to safe haven, then what about heaven? Are there any other worlds connected? How many realms are there? Is it just the living world and safe haven? Like what is this world really? I don't think everything that's meant to be fantasy or whatever has to have crazy, over the top, unique world building. Something can still have like a generic world, but can be carried by the characters. But still, I don't know. And also, again, these last criticisms you should take with a grain of salt because they're not really as serious as the other ones. Is there no hope for Zoophobia? Is it destined, nay, doomed to be this forgotten, unfinished disappointment of a series? Or is there a chance that maybe it could find some sort of redemption? Maybe it could come back in some better form? Well, fortunately, there might be. There have been a few animated shorts based around Zoophobia, and what I really like about these is how they're a lot more personal. They focus primarily on the characters' inner struggles as opposed to any like wide world building or anything like that. The two most notable of these are the Kesha Dayoung music video and the Bad Luck Jack short. The music video like has a much more like interesting backstory than the video itself, where apparently the main character of it, JJ, was bought from a different artist called Doll Creep, but Vivian did not credit him as he was a dick apparently, even though she technically did, just didn't say that he made the character. So this led to a whole feud, and then also the video was removed because of supposed copyright claims for using a Kesha song. It also may have been why episode 8 of Haluva Boss was delayed for a time. I think there were a few theories. One was that a character in this one, Beelzebub, was going to be voiced by Kesha, and Kesha was in the middle of a legal situation. Or I think I remember hearing another theory is that they were actually going to cameo JJ in the background since it was about hellhounds, and then maybe that was why like Dull Creep didn't want that to happen. I don't know. There's been a few theories, but either way, the Helluva Boss episode is out, and you can still watch the Die Young music video through re-uploads. So, whatever. Now, what about the music video itself? Well, it's fine. It's a music video. I do really like JJ's design. I like her colors and her shape and the like overall she's gone on. Though if she wasn't designed by Vivzy Pop and was designed by Doll Creep or someone else, then that kind of doesn't really warrant any praise then, because then she's just reusing the design. But whatever. But remember how I said that Zoophobia felt kind of like a proto version of the art style? Well, here you can kind of see that also, where it's like, yeah, it's fluid, but it's almost like too fluid, and every character is like always off model, and because of how fast all the motion is, you just kind of don't know what you're looking at sometimes. So I'd call this next one more of like an episode short or something like that. It mainly focuses on Jack and it's called Bad Luck Brian. Before I get into this next one, here's some more controversy. Ooh, so around the time this came out, or at least I think it was around the time, people were like talking about this accusation against Vivzy Pop where she drew an image of a debatably underage character going at it with some snakes. Now, what do I mean by snakes? Do you mean like that one guy that was part snake? Was it that one girl that's named Snake? No, like just an actual straight up snake. And no, you sick freaks, I'm not going to put an image of it. I ain't searching for that. The character in question was Addison Woods, whom some claim to be 18 while others claim to be 17. People often cite the wiki as their source, but like, you know you can't trust those things, right? Anyone can edit it. Addison is also in a relationship with a different character named Gustav, who is not a vampire, I know, but Gustav is 19 and Addison is either 17 or 18, and okay, it's not that wide of an age gap, but with this sort of thing, you do really need to be careful. It is like walking over nails. I think some say that, like, it's fine for a 17-year-old to date someone that's like 18 or 19 just as long as they don't do anything. I don't know. We don't really know what the age of consent laws in Safe Haven are. So there's also a character called Mirage, who is in universe meant to be a bad guy, and she tries to like mind control Addison, turn him into Mr. Hyde, and I think at some point she like essays him. And again, this is a very like complicated thing to include in a story. Like, yes, it's fine. You can have these sort of issues, but you need to be very careful with it. And look, it's kind of weird because you have this underage character who is in a, I guess, quote unquote, healthy relationship with an adult, but then at the same time, that exact same character is getting groomed by an adult. So it's like, I don't know, it's a bit of a strange dynamic going on here. There's a lot of things here that you like, I guess you can do in a story, but you just need to be very, very careful with how you do it. Going back to the hentai situation, let's say that, for a moment, hypothetically, Pop in her own mind believed that Addison was of age, and that's why she drew that image. I still think that's pretty gross, because, like, it's one thing to make an anthropomorphized character of something, but to just straight up have someone go at it with an actual animal is just really weird and gross. Now, I'm not trying to say that Vivzy Pop is a bad person. I feel like whenever you look at all of her controversies, and the pattern that you might notice is that she's not a bad person. She's just kind of an idiot sometimes. Like, not to sound mean, again, I really don't want to sound mean. Like, she's very talented. She just makes very strange decisions a lot of the times, doesn't really think about what would happen afterward. Like, remember that sausage party thing I brought up at the beginning of the video? Yeah, I do not think she is a person with ill will or anything like that. She is just such a weirdo sometimes. I almost completely forgot about Bad Luck Jack. Okay, tangent over, time to talk about this. It's a pretty short, simple story about Jack struggling with his bad luck. There's no focus on the wider world building or any overarching plots or any bad guys like Chaos or the vampires or anything. And it seems like they've finally gotten rid of Cameron Walden, which, like, great. If you're not gonna do anything with her, then get rid of her. Jack ends up running off because he wants to protect his friends from his curse, but they end up tracking him down and try to reassure him that they still love him despite his whole flaw. And there's not too much to say about it because it is a very simplistic story, but it's cute, it's wholesome, it's enjoyable. The only criticisms I have with it, like before seeing Zoophobia and after, are about the same. Because, like, at one point Jack runs into a big monster, and it's kind of like, okay, well, if they're animal people, then, like, how does a monster in that world work? Why isn't it rampaging through the city? What's, like, the species biology? How does all that work? The comic, they don't really explain it either. But I was a little confused because in the short they don't explain why he has bad luck, but in the comic they do. But also, they never specify in the short that he's immortal, so, like, at one point his head gets chopped off and they just slip it back on like a Lego. Yeah, that part doesn't really make sense if you haven't read the comic. You don't really need to know how Jack got cursed for the story to make sense. You don't even need to know, like, any of the Zoophobia lore, because it's not really what the story is about. I really like how Zill and the rest of Jack's friends are characterized. They're very supportive, and they have a very healthy relationship with each other. A lot of people have pointed out that Bad Luck Jack is actually quite family friendly, despite, Pop's expected track record of adult animation. Now, I wouldn't really call the original comic family friendly, but I do like this new PG direction. It's a bit of a refresher from what we usually see out of Pop. And I think that if we're going to be seeing any more Zoophobia to any extent, this is the right way to do it. But why exactly was Zoophobia ended prematurely anyway? Well, my dear viewer, hold on for 1 second. I've returned from the past with lots of new, fresh research, and now I can tell you definitively why Zoophobia was cancelled. Apparently, the project became too overwhelming, and Pop was forced to cut everything completely. I know that sounds kind of, what's the word, like, obvious? Because that's kind of how pretty much all these indie projects fall apart anyway. There's more. No. The story goes that Vivian was a young, naive artist who introduced way too many characters and way too many storylines all at once. Apparently, people began criticizing her work more and more, and those insecurities started to get to her. This is why the series was put on hold. This really strikes me personally, since I a while back tried to make my own series called Dreamer's Odyssey, but no matter really how hard I tried, no one seemed to care about it. No one ever looked at it or even said anything about it, and it's what led to it later kind of falling apart. It's never a good thing when someone loses their creativity. And look, you should view criticism more as a suggestion for improvement. You should never try to follow all of it all at once. You should follow it as you see fit. It's important to know the difference between a genuine critique and just a nitpick. And even if something is a genuinely good critique, you can still admit it has value without following it directly, since at the end of the day, it is your own work, and you can do whatever you want with it. So, what I'm trying to say is if you're someone who likes zoophobia, that's great. All that really means is that you have more joy in your life than I do. And though it has plenty of charm and personality, I personally just cannot say I like it enough to even call myself a casual fan, really. For a lot of people, Zoophobia is a nostalgic classic, and looking at a lot of this artwork and characters, if I had discovered this earlier in life, I'd probably see it the same way too, and I honestly wish I did. And if Zoophobia ever does come back, there will be less characters and less over the top storytelling, which I think is definitely a step in the right direction. And when Hazbin Hotel inevitably wraps up in the year 3180, we just might finally get that Zoophobia reboot. And I personally could not wait. Oh, but you thought Zoophobia was the only cancelled, unfinished Vivziepop project? Oh no, my friend, the rabbit hole goes far, far deeper. And I kinda want to do an entire compilation video just going through all of these at once. So if that's something you're interested in, then comment down below. But please actually do comment, because every time I see that no one leaves anything, please, please, I blow there, I need stimulation. But until then, this has been Bradworst signing off. Actually, speaking of Zootopia, Vivian was almost able to sue Disney because of how similar its name was to Zoophobia. Could you imagine if that actually happened? That would have been freaking hilarious.